All right, everyone. So let's talk about the defund the police movement and how it really leads to destruction. First of all, let's talk about the George Floyd situation. Officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty of second-degree unintentional murder, and he was found guilty of third-degree murder. And he is going to be seeing jail time. He's going to be in prison for years. Can we please stop complaining about systematic racism? Can we please stop complaining about systemic racism and how the system is racist and it favors the police over the brown man, when the reality is that Derek Chauvin was sentenced. He was found guilty on all counts, regardless of the fact that George Floyd had fentanyl in his blood, large amounts of fentanyl in his blood, and fentanyl cuts off people's breathing, regardless of the fact that he had meth in his blood, and meth raises up your heart rate to dangerous levels. Add to that the fact that Floyd had heart problems, and so you have a dangerously elevated heart rate in conjunction with heart problems, in conjunction with fentanyl, an excessive consumption of fentanyl, and then on top of that, you have the stress of the arrest, and he died. Now, regardless of all of that, regardless of the fact that the guy who actually did the autopsy on Floyd's body, the Hennepin County medical examiner, affirming that the knee did not asphyxiate Floyd, that fentanyl and meth contributed to his death. And if he were to see Floyd's body dead in a house, he would have simply assumed fentanyl overdose. Regardless of all of that, Mr. Chauvin was found guilty. And he was found guilty on all counts. So all the people screaming about racism and how America is systematically racist and how the police system is racist and how all cops are bastards, can we please just stop all that nonsense? Because you guys just got proven wrong. But then you're going to have the fanatics, because the thing about fanatics is if you give them an inch, they take a mile. If you give them a mile, they want the whole damn country. All these fanatics are going to start coming up saying things like, well, this is simply one step forward. There are millions of George Floyds out there screaming for justice. Millions of George Floyds out there whose voices have not been heard, whose blood is soaking the earth, crying out for justice. Because George Floyd could not breathe. And we all know that the air is not given to the black man without a price. Air is not even free for the black man. The only people who are allowed access to air are non-melanated people. But the melanated folks, they have to pay for air. They got to pay for breath. They got to pay for breath with their lives. 1 million George Floyds out there who have not been heard, crying out for justice. Okay, we all know they're going to be making the speeches. They're going to say, we made one step forward with the sentencing of Officer Derek Chauvin, but we have 1 million more steps to take. So they're never going to be satisfied. And here's the thing, their entire industry, their entire activism industry is based off of the narrative that America is racist and that the police are bad and the police need to be defunded. So I'm going to assume that there were quite a few people in the streets very upset upon hearing that Chauvin was found guilty, because they were hoping to have the justification to riot. They were hoping to have that moment where they could say, let's go out and riot again. Mama, I'm going to give you a flat screen TV. But they didn't get that. And their narrative went right down to shit. So you're still going to have these fanatics screaming about defunding the police. And they're going to keep incessantly adding these stories. Because what happened not too long before the verdict came out for the George Floyd story? What happened? The media was already pushing the story of who? Dante Wright. And we all know that story is bullshit. Dante Wright. Because Dante Wright robbed a woman, chokeslammed her, put a pistol on her head, and wanted to rob her of her rent money. And then he got arrested. He got out on bail. And then while he was out on bail, he was caught with a pistol. Illegal possession of a firearm. So the police said, hey, sorry. He was out on bail, and yeah, he possessed a pistol illegally, so he was a wanted man. The cops found a wanted man. They found a wanted man, and he got killed because he was trying to escape the cops. So to hell with Mr. Wright. I don't really give a crap about that guy. He was a criminal. He was a scumbag is what he was. And then, now you got this other story. Makia. Here's another one. It's coming out of Cleveland, Ohio. Her name is Makia Bryant. So many names coming out now. And I feel like we're back in 2015. I mean, don't you guys feel like we're back in 2015? I feel like we're back in 2015 when Obama was president. Remember we had George Zimmerman and he was the bad guy. Then it turned out, actually, no, he was fighting out of self-defense. He killed Trayvon Martin justifiably. And then remember what happened after that? All of a sudden, all these other stories exploded. All these other stories started popping up out of the woodwork. Who was it? They started talking about Freddie Gray. What was his name? Castile. I forgot his first name. And then they started talking about all these other stories, right? Michael Brown. All these other stories started coming up. Philando Castile, that was his name. Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Tamar Rice, Michael Brown. All these stories started popping up. And then we saw the same thing taking place late last year. You had George Floyd, right? That sparked a whole bunch of riots. Then all of a sudden the media started talking about Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, Rashad Brooks, all these guys. So now we're seeing the same sort of trend popping up again, the same sort of habit, because we had the George Floyd verdict, and then not too long before that, they started talking about Dante Wright, and now they're talking about Makia Bryant. And this is the most, I swear, it's like the media is trolling us. I saw the video at like 3 a.m. It was hilarious because everyone's taking this way too seriously. I don't know why this is even a story. You have a domestic violence dispute. You have a dispute between people in a house. I don't know if they're necessarily related. Somebody calls 911. Police officer arrives. All of a sudden, you see a guy throwing a girl to the ground and kicking her like a damn soccer ball. And police officer's like, hey, stop that. Enough. He sees a girl pull out a knife. She's on the way to stab another girl. He shoots the girl with the knife and saves the other girl's life. So if the cop just stood there and did nothing and let this girl get stabbed, they would have been like, why didn't that white officer do something about it? Because he racist. He enjoy watching black folk kill each other because he racist. And then I saw that they interviewed Makia Bryant's mother, and she was like, she was a good kid. She was a good kid. And we were hearing the same bullshit about Dante Wright. He was a good kid. No, actually, he was a wanted criminal. He choked a woman and put a pistol on her head and tried to rob her of $820. Sorry, I'm stuttering. Tried to rob a woman of $820. And tried to rob this woman of her rent money. It was just complete bullcrap. And now they're like, hey, watch this cop save another woman's life. Saved her life before she got stabbed to death. And we're like, do they expect us to be outraged by this? And I saw some video on the internet of a woman. She was filming Makia Bryant getting shot. No, actually, no, sorry. She filmed the aftermath of it. And all you see is these two officers doing CPR on Makia Bryant, right? Because they're so racist. And I'm not even joking. This woman says, "You so racist. You so racist." And I'm like, okay, how delusional do you have to be to actually believe this? And and here's the question: is the media delusional for presenting these stories as actual serious stories, or are they trying to get a reaction? And we all know the media is worth billions of dollars. They're ran by very intelligent people. I doubt that they're delusional. I really think that they want us to react. They want us to react depending on our own political persuasion. So if we're right wing, we get angry at the media, and we get angry at who else? We get angry at BLM. We get angry at the defund the police movement. We get angry at these left wingers. If you're a left winger, you get angry at who? You get angry at the police. You get angry at the right. They're trying to spark political division. It's very obvious. I don't think you need to be like a major in political studies to see that this is very obvious. And most Americans don't want to defund the police. Most Americans don't even like this anti-police stuff. So what are they really doing? I mean, what are you really accomplishing by just bitching and complaining about these stupid stories? Because these stories mean nothing. Really, they mean nothing. Okay, a woman pulls out a knife and tries to stab another woman, and she gets shot by a cop. Sounds like just another episode of Cops. And even if you look at the story of George Floyd, I mean, is that story really that remarkable? George Floyd isn't the first person to die while being arrested. And George Floyd essentially died of heart failure. He died of heart failure. His heart failed. His heart stopped. Why? He wasn't getting enough oxygen. He had heart problems, and he was a drug addict. So this is going to discourage police officers. The fact that you have an entire movement based on this story, which is really not remarkable, it's already discouraging cops. It's already discouraging cops because now, to the mind of the officer, it's, well, if I have to arrest somebody, how do I know they haven't been eating a whole bunch of fried chicken and drugs? And then how do I know if that person isn't going to get a heart attack while I'm arresting them or while I'm holding them down? And then if he does die because he had too much fried chicken and drugs, then I become the focus of an entire international media story. Just look at this whole thing with Ma'Khia Bryant. This cop saves this woman's life, shoots this girl because she was holding a gun and she wasn't stopping. She was holding a knife, sorry, and she wasn't stopping. And now the cop is on leave. He's being paid, but he's still on leave, and now he's part of a whole national story. I mean, do you really want to be part of that? Do you really want to join law enforcement, which doesn't really pay that well? Do you really want to follow your dream of protecting and serving when the reality is that your actions, regardless of how good they may be, regardless of how much they may help another person, will be seen as racist or evil? A lot of people, a lot of officers are already discouraged. And it's just not good. I mean, to put it simple, it's not good. So what happens when you keep pushing these stories? Cops get discouraged. Americans get angry because they don't really like you because you're bitching about cops for stupid reasons. You're really complaining about cops for doing their job, which is law enforcement. Yeah, they're going to kill people. Their job title is pretty self-explanatory. Law enforcement. They're there to enforce the law. So Americans are going to start hating blacks more and more. Congratulations, media. You are now the biggest promoter of racism. I said it last year. The most dangerous thing about racism is that racism uses truth. I've said this before. Racism uses truth. And when you have all these black people running around going, oh, are they police so racist? He was a good kid. He was a good kid. When in reality, the kid was like a murderer or a robber. When you have so much of that being presented to the public, a lot more people are going to be racist. A lot more people are going to start having more and more patriotic zeal, and it's not necessarily going to be the healthy kind. And also, you're getting black people angry because you're telling them the police hates them, the cops are racist. blah, 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 blah. And this is not all the media, but this is certain people in the media, Roland Martin being one of them. So what's going to happen also if you start defunding the police? Because some cities have actually defunded the police in substantial levels. And I'll give you guys some examples. For one example, you have the city of Austin. The city of Austin, according to an article that I read, I think it was on USA Today. I don't remember where I read it. You can look this up. Austin, Texas, cut its police budget in August by 35%. That's huge. And let's look at the crime rate in Austin. The murder rate in Austin has risen tremendously. Tremendously. And there's an article on it from KXAN. And here's an excerpt that I wanted to read to you guys. The East Town Lake Citizens Neighborhood Association is asking the Austin Parks and Recreation Department for better lighting in the park and Austin Police Department for more patrols in the area, especially on weekends when large groups are gathered there. Here's a quote from the association's president, Bertha Rendon Delgado. She said, quote, "We need community policing. We need APD to be with the community. This is where the conversation starts." I thought defunding the cops would be a great idea. You guys want more police because the crime rate has risen substantially in Austin. The murder rate has risen substantially in Austin. And what do people ask for when they see crime and violence? Oh, they want police. Here's a quote from USA Today. "Last year, the United States tallied more than 20,000 murders, the highest total since 1995, and 4,000 more than in 2019. Preliminary FBI data for 2020 points to a 25% surge in murders, the largest single-year increase since the agency began publishing uniform data in 1960. Murder rate has increased tremendously in this country. The message from a new wave of progressive prosecutors is clear. Making arrests for drug and weapons crime that will go unprosecuted exposes officers to the risk of disciplinary action, lawsuits, and criminal prosecution. To mitigate that risk, police take a more passive approach." So, some guy walked into your store and gave you a fake $20 bill to steal a pack of cigarettes? No, we're not going to answer that. No, not worth it. Because if we arrest the guy and he has eaten, too much fried chicken and drugs, and he dies of a heart attack, we don't want that to be on us, because then the whole media is on our asses, and we have to deal with settlements and lawsuits and negative media attention. Do we really want to deal with that? You have a dispute at your house. A girl has a knife. I mean, if we send an officer, he may kill her, and we don't want to be accused of racism or discrimination or police brutality. So we really just want to deal with the really serious crimes, the ones that we can kill people in and get away with it because the crimes are so egregious. Data shows a precipitous decline in law enforcement activity from last June through this February. We found that across the 10 major cities we studied, deadly violence rose as engaged policing fell. Cities that cut or threaten to cut police budgets often saw the largest drops in active policing and the increases in homicide. In 2015, when an ACLU lawsuit reduced Chicago police's ability to make stops and searches, Windy City killings jumped 58% as street stops fell 82% in 2016, according to the University of Utah research. Already, bloody St. Louis hit a 50-year homicide high, a rate of 87 per 100,000 residents, a rate 3 times higher than Mexico and Central America. So now St. Louis, Missouri got more murders than Mexico. As Milwaukee announced slashing 120 officers from its police force, the city saw a 98% increase in killing. So Milwaukee got rid of 120 cops, 98% increase in murders. Philadelphia hit a 30-year high with 500 homicide victims in 2020 and more than 100 in 2021 so far. As Progressive District Attorney Larry Krasner has dropped 50% of both drug and illegal gun cases, police have reduced vehicle and pedestrian stops by 72%. So there's your city of Philadelphia. Over the summer, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler defunded the Portland Police Bureau by $12 million and eliminated 3 police units. As chaos engulfed the city, shootings went up 173% and murders jumped at an astounding 255%. Witnessing the carnage, Wheeler now plans to reconstitute the disbanded gun violence squad and put $2 million back into its budget. Now, not too long ago, the United States had to defund the police because of the Great Recession that took place. And what happened? Murders. A lot more murders went unsolved in 2008. Why? Because they didn't have the money or the manpower to actually solve crimes in a more efficient manner. So what does this all mean? For one, okay, forget the for one stuff. I'll just make this very simple. If you continue bashing the cops, you're going to piss off conservatives. You're going to piss off most Americans. If people keep seeing black people complaining about the cops for stuff that is not really worth complaining about, more and more people are going to get sick and tired of black folks. It's just the reality. I'm not supporting it, but it's just the reality. And if the people who want to defund the police continue to succeed, crime is going to go up. And if crime rates go up in a very horrid rate, what's going to happen eventually? What's going to happen eventually is you're going to be seeing more police brutality. People are going to get more violent. Cops are going to have to get more violent. And so what eventually will happen is more and more lawlessness. High crime rates are going to be seen more so in areas where minorities live, blacks being the biggest one. And if more black crime rates are seen increasing, what's that going to do? It's going to further segregate the population. And so you're going to have more racism, more segregation, and blacks are going to suffer even more. And you're just going to have more lawlessness in the United States, and you're going to have a more polarized society. Because crime, one thing that crime is very good at doing is destroying the cohesiveness, the unity, and the trust within society. And if you lose those things, you have more separation and more polarization. And that's just not good. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.